live from Trinidad and Tobago.
Welcome to Connections 50 Plus Wednesdays live show.
I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Connections 50 Plus Wednesdays Alive. And Terry and I said, alive, not live.
Yes, we have to be alive because we have a live show on Monday, Fix Up, and we have our pre-recorded Wednesday. So it is Wednesday Alive.
Alive, you know. So all those in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph.
And I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
Yes, and we are the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus. So we are so happy to have you here with us this evening. And we're going to chat on the topic about our emancipation journey. On the 1st of August, which is on Saturday, in Trinidad and Tobago, we are celebrating Emancipation Day, which is a very significant event for us in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So, Terry-Ann, but before we get in and tell you more about our journey, let's chat a bit about that Fix Up. Fix Up, as you all will know, this is our cable television show on Gael the Caribbean every Monday from 6 to 7. Mm-hmm. So if you have missed it, you can go to our Facebook page, Connections Facebook page, to view the replay, or on our YouTube channel to view. And we always welcome your comment. So we will just chat a bit about, how it went on Monday.
But Jennifer, we need to also remind people that because there are some people who don't have social media for whatever reason.
Yes, yeah.
There is an app called Tigo TV, T-E-G TV, which if you download the app in the Android store or the iStore, you can have a selection of Caribbean channels that you can take anywhere. And Gael is one of those channels. So if you download Tigo TV, you can take Caribbean TV with you and have us in your pocket.
Yes, that's great. So on Monday, we had our guests and we chatted a lot about self-care. Yes. And our toolkit, which is called the Essentials 5.8 toolkit, which has 3 aspects to it. So the conversation was really a very interesting conversation with our specialist professionals, and each professional, of course, is in a different, in different aspects. So we had Terry and we had Maria. Yes. And Maria was our nutritionist and fitness coach, and Maria spoke about what to expect with her assessment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we had,
There was also a very nice interaction when we had Errol coming on.
Yes.
Because, while we were focusing on the launch of the toolkit, which we talked a lot about last week and was now on our Facebook page, everybody look underneath or on top. It's right there.
Yes.
The issues of health were so important, and Maria wasn't the only one there. Desiree was also there.
Yes, we had Dr. Desiree Arnold, who Desiree is a naturopath and a physician, and Desiree is the one who in her assessment, which is a medical assessment, deals with the internal. Yes. So Desiree assessment will determine where you are in terms of how you're functioning, and she mentioned too about your liver, your different organs, and to give that base as to where you are and what to expect. Also, Terry-Ann, what I liked to do was with the call-in, and we had Richard calling in, and both Maria and Desiree was able to really respond to the needs of a man. I just love when men call in, so they don't feel left out because the assessment is for everyone, 50 plus, and Maria was really able, because I felt the question Richard asked, which many of us and men at that age, concern about, is a little extra weight you put on, especially around your stomach.
Yeah.
And then Errol mentioned, and I still want to eat, and Trini, we will say the little hop spread and 4 hop spread, etc. So I felt Maria addressed that concern very well. And Desiree was able to add to it. We spoke about, lifestyle habits and really what you eat and what you should look for. And Richard was quite happy to know it may not just be exercise. It may be him just not going into the fridge that often. So I found it was a really nice chat. We had to do a clip with Dr. Nika Joseph, who is the psychologist, the industrial and organizational psychologist on the team, and her assessment really deals with your mind. You know?
You got to position
And,
yourself. You got to know where you are.
But she wasn't able to attend live, but the clip showed a nice interview she had with Terry and with you about self-care and the benefit, and we know the benefit of doing such an assessment. So yes, I found, it was really an interesting session, having them on board and explaining what each one of them will be doing and what the assessment is all about. And you all will get, you'll hear more about it from us. It's on the Facebook page, actually. And it's on our website landing page.
Yeah. I think, Jennifer, one of the things that really, and again, this goes to the general work that we're doing, and it's not about tooting your horn, but our focus on the 50 plus cohort, that next 30 years of us as vibrant, energetic experience, the value of experience, and how do we use that to have a quality life going forward. And both Desiree and Maria, and most people who commented during the live, because it's live, we are not seeing the Facebook comments. And afterwards, I was going through them. So very appreciative of the fact that we are doing this kind of work, which is such a connected and hands-on way to help our cohort prepare for the next 30 years in the best way we could, and the Essential Toolbox really looks at your mind, where are you, your body, and we tend to say the soul part of it is the maintenance, what are you eating, and how are you moving, because Maria says, don't say exercise brings all kinds of images, but the ability to move effectively, and even if you have a limitation, how do you optimize your limitations? You may have an accident, you may have diabetes, you may have nerve problems, but if you keep your body physically in the right place and your mind is in the right place, those next 30, 40 years, it's still going to be the best thing possible in your third act. So,
Terran, I love the idea when Maria mentioned movement, because many people, when you hear exercise, you think of going on a treadmill, running laps, really stressful, type of activities. And, when you think of that, you say, well, no, this is not for me. Yeah. But when she spoke about movement, I could easily relate, because movement could be, as she mentioned, you could like gardening, and you're out there gardening. I do a lot of walking, and so movement don't have to be that heavy going on this treadmill, running at a rate. But what she did mention though, and I took note of it, because I am one who do a lot of walking. What she did mention that we need to be aware of our muscles.
Yes.
So even though I do walking, you look at ways where you can strengthen your muscles. And I found that that is a very important activity to add. So it may not be going to lift heavy weights, but looking at other things that you can do to strengthen your muscles. So for me, that was very important. And I know with her assessment, because I actually had an assessment done by Maria. I had Maria as my nutritionist. And the assessment was able to determine your muscle mass and different aspects of your body that will tell you, okay, yes, you need to maybe do certain exercises to strengthen that aspect that is a bit weak. So I know the assessment definitely, when I did it, helped me with that.
And more particularly in this assessment, people wonder, how am I going to have the assessments done, whether it's medically, mentally, but based, in the US, there's the new telemedicine. The pandemic brought the need for social distancing.
Oh, yes.
Right now, telemedicine is being rolled out across all healthcare facilities. And essentially, you and your doctor, it's an interview. It's an interview. If you need to be tested, sounded, or blood test, yes, you could do that. But essentially, a doctor makes an assessment of your state of health based on information you give them, based on questions they ask. And that is what the medical, and we're all accustomed to the psychometric assessments. And, I was making the point with Maria in that people wonder, well, how can an assessment determine my health? My physical condition? Well, there are exercises you have to do and videos you have to follow. So it really is comprehensive, and I'm excited, and I was very, very uplifted by the kinds of comments and the kinds of engagement that people would have presented. And I am excited. I mean, we have the registration period on now, and people are going to have the full payment system is going to be on early next week. So pre-register and take advantage of the introductory price. Yes.
And what you would love also, and Terry-Ann mentioned it just now, they are all online assessments. They're all online. We were fortunate that we did the assessments. I actually did assessment with Dr. Arnold, and I did assessment with Dr. Joseph.
Yeah.
So I have that experience, and I can tell you with each assessment, I was able to determine, when Dr. Arnold did my assessment, from the results, you're able to determine, well, okay, what I liked was that I felt that I am in good health and that I'm eating right, etc. Maria did my diet sheet that she did. And when I say something, I say diet, and people say, and diet, no, but the special way of eating what I'm supposed to eat. She did that. I followed that. I exercised. And when I went by Dr. Arnold, just to check now to see, as I see my organs, everything working, I was really surprised at, the results. It wasn't bad, but she pointed us, the areas that she pointed out, I would have never known about it unless I did that assessment.
Jennifer,
so that was good.
It's so funny as you say it. Even on Facebook today, we have a small poll, and we ask people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how healthy do you think you are at 50 plus? And up to about, just before we came on, I was looking, 132 people had responded. And probably 90% of them are saying, 10, 9, or 8.
Terry-Ann, when I saw that, I'm saying, but we have a really group of healthy 50 plus people out there. But you know what? I would have been one of those who would have scored, give myself a very high score. Because before I did those assessment, I would have said yes. I would say, I may not say full 10 because I'll hold back a bit, but I would have been 8 or 9 because Tara, I would feel really that, yeah, I'm in good health. But I must tell those who have done that scored 9 and 10, my suggestion is really look at that toolkit. You may be very surprised, not that you're not in good health, but that there are many things you need to do to improve your health and to continue living healthy, as I say, up to 30 years at least, you know. So our toolkit, our essential toolkit, is a very important tool for you to you know, consider, for you to register for, and that will guide you and tell you, give you that baseline of where you are right now and what you need to do again, how you could improve, you know.
And I think what happens to people, and I think this is the danger, which is why we really wanted to do the toolkit, is that we become accustomed to our disease.
Yes, you live with it.
Whatever situation we have, we become accustomed to it. So we may not be at the optimal weights. There may be a 10 or 15 or 20 pounds extra that is being carried that we are accustomed carrying.
Yes.
So we feel fine. But as we get older, those 10, 15, 20 extra pounds add complications to our lives. We know that there is a lot, an epidemic of hypertension, diabetes, all those things. And you know, we get accustomed managing it. And because we're on the medication, we're feeling good. And we taking it, we're feeling good.
Yes.
But again, when we carry those things into the plus 50 years and we carry them with the habits, the eating habits, the lifestyle habits of the second act stage, by the time we start hitting 60, 65, 70, we begin to get an accelerated version. So, you know, Jennifer and I were thinking just now, I think we have to put in another level of questions to get people to think a little bit more deeply when you ask the question, how healthy are you at 50 plus? Because if we really ask ourselves, do I really know what I want and where my mind is? Am I prepared to leave the second act stage? Do I know what my passions are? Do I know what my dreams are? And sometimes, you know, I was talking to someone the other day who's just retired and she's lost because she didn't think about the next stage. And the door was shut behind her and she's lost. So if I were to do an assessment of her in terms of mind, I would say that's nowhere near a 10. And then a lot of us, as I said, because we are accustomed with this body and the little things that we know we should not be doing, and we going good, you know. But if we really do an honest assessment and measure ourselves against standards and then look down the road and say, all right, I probably survived the second act. Am I going to be able to go in the way that I am to the third act, you know? And then on the physical side, we have, we've knocked ourselves around, you know, we've had very active lives. Those of us who've been standing a lot or sitting a lot. We may have been playing sports. We may have been very sedentary. And it is when we come out, those movement and diet trouble starts, arthritis, muscles that haven't been moved and stretched, and you know, all of that, as Desiree said yesterday, you know, it all bubbles back up into the brain and the mind, and how we process, and there's the dementia, Alzheimer's, those kinds of things. So we we love the feedback from all
Yes.
132 of you
I feel too, Terry-Ann,
people.
most people probably just looked at one aspect of their health.
Or they just figured how I feel, but they didn't.
Yeah, they just went by that. But as you mentioned, when you, in terms of your mind, are you really ready?
Yeah.
You're feeling good one way, health-wise, but you can suffer from anxiety after, not knowing what is going to happen in the future, or a change of situation
Or worry
can happen. And yeah.
Your children, Jennifer,
Yeah.
your children.
So it's important to understand that and be ready mentally, for the later stage in life. There's other area that Desiree touched on, which was family history.
Yes.
That with the questionnaire, with the assessment, that comes up. And, unless you have to write it down, then you just don't think about it.
Or once again, Jennifer, ask. Because sometimes you talk to people and you ask them if their parents are dead or their grandparents, what did they die from?
You don't know.
And the thing is, there may be genetic issues that can carry on, and sometimes the grandparents died and they didn't know where they died from.
Yes.
So it is so important now that we be more questioning and probing and proactive about knowing where we are, because somewhere we were talking and people were saying that post-work retirement was you go, you get your chair and your TV and you sit down. And the reality is in our days, in the current life, you do not have that luxury. But your body has to take you there. Your mind has to take you there. You have to tune up. You've got to tune up. So, no, we had a lot of fun yesterday.
Yes.
We are looking forward to more on the essentials. But for those of you with the server, we're going to send some more questions. Oh, yes. So
that was good, and as usual, thank you all so much for following us on Fix Up, and viewing the show. We really appreciate. That was our second, actually. Yeah, that was show number 2.
We did not mention we were fixed up. We were fixed up by Dominic LaRoche.
Yes. So Fix Up has a lot of style in it,
And when we say style, we don't mean necessarily fashion. It's all about, if I were to shadow Richard Young, it's all about how we do things,
Yes.
And going on to remember, we are building a stage, we are building a platform. So it has to have a certain finesse that represents us, and how we do it, how we say it, how we move, how we look, all of that is style. So we stylish.
We fix up.
Okay, so now we on Wednesday Alive, and Saturday is Emancipation Day.
Terry-Ann, emancipation. How do you view emancipation?
Well, as a Trinidadian, my view of emancipation might be a little bit radical, it might be a little bit different. A lot of people would look at emancipation in terms of a holiday that we now have. But I am an historian at heart. I love to look at the what and the how. And if I meet someone, sometimes I might border on the level of being fast and a little bit too intrusive, because I like to go back and see what and how. The Emancipation Holiday refers to Afro-Trinidadians, the descendants of slaves. And to the extent that we are commemorating emancipation, when I think about it, I start with the emancipation of the slaves in 1834. So my celebration is usually a reflective journey of how we as Afro-Trinidadians living in this beautiful, multicultural, multiracial Trinidad and Tobago, what has that journey been like for us as a people on the whole, and for me and my family as parts of that subgroup of people?
Yeah.
And when I look at the emancipation journey, I have many emotions and many different views. But all around, I think for Afro-Caribbean people, people in the diaspora, particularly people here, I think that generally for a people to emerge out of the horror of slavery, where identity is stripped, and if you don't have identity, then Jesus Christ, tell me, what do you have? Where identity is stripped, opportunity is stripped. You look at us in 2020, and I am very proud of how we as a people have come to where we are. Because when we look at it, and we were thinking about this topic, I sort of traced the genealogy of emancipation to see where we have come. And life has been a continual, and I use the word struggle, but I don't think there's any group that doesn't struggle. You struggle, but it's not a beat down struggle. Because from emancipation, you really didn't have the colonial powers giving up easily their source of wealth, which is free labor.
Yes.
So we in the Caribbean, we in Trinidad went into a very traumatic period of colonial rule. And I suppose for us in Trinidad, it might have been a little different because we didn't have as many sugar estates. We had a lot of cocoa and coffee, and a lot of people who came here with the cedula, and they had to really scratch, and we didn't have established and organized plantations like Barbados or Jamaica did have. So while I think our sense of slavery wasn't as brutal, it was harder.
Yeah.
And in the colonial period, you really had the whites fighting to maintain control over a mass of people who left and went to pursue their own devices, and who always had a sense of independence. So when we think that just 100 years after emancipation, 1834 to 1934, that's just 100 years. That's a parent, a child, and a grandparent. You had the 1930 riots in Trinidad, where urban Blacks were demanding the right to have access to amenities like water and representation and things like that. And you have powerful leaders like Butler and so on coming up. So I think of my great-great-grandfather, who may have been grandfather and grandmother, may have been one of the emancipated slaves. And then my great-great-grandfather, part of the whole movement to have workers. I know that my great-grandparents were involved in the oil industry, working with TLL and so on. So they would have been moving with Butler and demanding to be better. So for me on my journey, I know that that movement meant a lot. And then we moved into the period of the 50s where the colonials were less interested in us and taking less care of us and us wanting more representation. And then we moved legislatively to allow a wider franchise. And I remember my grandfather, my step-grandfather, talking about that in the 50s when everyone got the right to vote, you know, but you still had the legislative council and you had the governor general and all of that. And so you see that rise in the sense of purpose and identity. And of course it crescended in 62 when we got our independence. And with that came the leader, Eric Williams, and all of the access to health, education. You know, the nation was formed. And I mean, yes, you have parallels of the other races, but for emancipation, I'm focusing on us as a people. and you have that access. And even though right after that you had the challenge of the disappointment of, because some people believe that the benefits won't come in too fast enough, and you had the 1970 insurrection, which was part of the whole Black Power movement. I see that also as a part of us continuing that struggle to get better, because here you were excluded from the private sector and you wanted more rights. And fortunately, that coincided 3 years later with the first oil boom in 73. And the state then put so much infrastructure in place that allowed Afros and Indo-Trinidadians, all of us, to access education, health, the infrastructure. We were able to own homes. We were able to give, and I am a direct beneficiary, you're not direct beneficiaries of those things. You know, education was now no longer, you needed to get an exhibition to get into a good secondary school. You had the entrance exam. So even though post-independence, you had the 1970 revolution, then we had the oil boom, and we being on energy, I see again, you know, when you think of the emancipation, my great-great-grandfather off of the estate, and you fight through the butter riots, and you fight through the legislative, and then you get to independence, you go through. So I see the emancipation journey really going, and anytime people would be breaking free and building on their own, you're going to have a lot of struggle. And I think that was well represented in the 1990 coup, which again saw an uprising of the Afro-Trinidadian, but this time it's a little difficult, a little different. There was one group having the uprising, but you know, the sad outcome of that, and I think we're still trying to recover. So we have a very educated, we are into the professions, but the sad thing for me coming out, the setback for us in the 1990s is that the Afro commercial population, there were many, many Black business owners in Port of Spain. Port of Spain shops were essentially owned by Blacks, and you had the whites. But
so there was a fallout, Tarian, at that time.
Yeah, after Port of Spain, most of them did not have the wherewithal to continue their businesses. So they just abandoned. They were burnt out, looted out, and they had to leave. And I think that is when you have, and the people who had resources were the Arabs, the Chinese, they bought out town. So when you look at Port of Spain now, and you wonder, when did this switch happen? That was an outcome of 1990 that...
Actually, Tarian, I remember my dad had a very good friend on, that will have been Prince Street.
Yeah.
For those within my age, and I could call the name, that was Little Goose, we used to call it. And that was the store, don't care what we needed.
General merchandise store.
We lived in Belmont at that time, and the owner, of course, Mr. Richardson, also lived in Belmont, and was my dad's good friend. So that was the store we all went to. Next door was the Reiner's record store. So I am aware of the Black businesses
that no longer exist. Because
and there were many, and we knew who to go to purchase, you know, goods, because also you could have made an arrangement. There was a little arrangement, you know. Yes. So I recall that. So you're quite correct. You know, you're quite correct in making that
was a
observation.
And I think that's 1990, and that's 30 years from now. And I think since then we have been, we have that base of educated people, but we have also suffered having massive brain drains of a lot of our best leaving, and a lot of us, our children go abroad, they go and they study, and sometimes we encourage them not to come back. So
because that started then, because they felt they want the opportunities down here. we pushed for education, and then you felt they definitely, why not let them go abroad, make it, make themselves, as I say, reach a certain level, and make a better life for themselves overseas. And as you said, it didn't return.
Whatever. And I see that as part of our emancipation journey. And even now, 2020, I mean, a lot of things have happened. We are seeing it's now turning around, because with not only with the pandemic, the world, the leadership of the world has become more xenophobic. It's become more cliquish. People are not happy with outsiders and foreigners. And I think as a result of many wars started by we know who, and we know the wars happened, we know where, you find that life has become difficult for a lot of the children of our immigrants. And right now, we have another, I think, upheavals, whether it is reflected in the Black Lives Matter movement. We just had a little thing in Port of Spain. But a lot of people are now coming back to saying, who in heaven's name am I? And why am I living where I'm living in the way that I'm living? And I think we are in the midst of another stage of our emancipation journey in 2020, with people thinking about, where are my children? Where are they living? If they are here, what is the future for them? And how do I make sure that future is more solid and more focused on me being whoever the individual is? So Jen, when I look at the emancipation journey, for us as a people, I think there has always been struggle. There has always been an effort to do better, and that movement has always been upward. I am very proud of our progress. When I think of our family, and I know our history, I know when my father's family left the Union Estate after, and where they settled. We could go to those places in Rambert and on Lord Street. They lived in the barrackyards, and I could literally see how each one moved, and how every generation in my family is doing so much better than the last generation. So I have immense pride in my Africanness. I have immense pride in the way we've developed. I, like everybody else, could say a lot to other people about how we've done and what they've done. But generally, I think we are on a journey, and some are not doing as well as others. And the fact that we are here doing this is another expression of me trying to build and help everyone, all Trinidadians, Afro, Indo, anyone, build. But this is also part of my personal development and my expression of self. I am very proud of who I am. I am very proud of who I am. I know who I am, and I can just dream, when I dream of my children's future and my yet unborn grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. If we continue with the trajectory that my great-great-grandfather, great-great would have had when they left in 1834, when they left the estate. And I always make a joke, when he or she was in Africa, I don't know if it's a he or a she, I'm pretty happy they couldn't run fast, because I know
they remained.
My Kenyan friends would not be happy when I say this. If they could have run real fast, I might still be there and I wouldn't be here.
So Tarian, you will say you are emancipated.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Right. It's great. And really, Tarian, I am so happy that you're a historian. Because, no, it is important. It is definitely important to start with your history, to know it.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't, you won't be able to make those informed decisions going forward. So I see that as very, very important, and I'm so happy you're able to share, starting that and give that, and not detail, but key information to where it all started, to where we are now.
You got to pass it on to the generations.
And that is what, to me, that is what emancipation is all about. Yes, we need a celebration as what is being done and what will be done on Saturday. with the parade, and then going back again in history and reenacting, what has happened in the early days. But for me also, when for being emancipated, emancipation for me is really, again, freedom. But having that freedom of choice, being able to live in an environment where there is equality in many ways, and I can pursue my goals and create a legacy, because emancipation, and you're going back from slavery days right through, and you look back, this is what our ancestors would want. That they went through a lot of struggle, they went through pain, they went through, everything they could think of that was negative.
They had to port and then cross the Atlantic.
Yeah. But guess what? That vision they had, knowing that, listen to me, the generation to come, what we doing here, it would make things better for them. And the stories that were told helped. Yeah. So again, we're on a journey. And when I look back on my journey, and you started having a little more years than you have, Terry. So, yeah.
Before 1834.
So I grew up in the days with, of course, we had the Governor General before the independence. I recall, Independence Day when we celebrated, and my parents, we all went to the celebration and they explained what independence is all about. As a child, it was explained very simply, but it was very effective, is that my father said, we no longer have the white masters in charge of us, and this was the Eric William days, my dad. And for me then is when I would say I became more aware of where we were in life and what needed to be done for us to have a better quality life. Fortunately for us in my home, my father, like you, Terry Ann, or you say you like him because you're younger, was an historian. In his way, always will go back and tell us what happened in the early days. He put dates. Everything was a date. He couldn't tell you what year, whatever happened. And that is how I learned about, our ancestors, on our case, our grandparents, and they came from Barbados, and why they came to Trinidad. Trinidad was the place for the smaller islands to come to. And the grandparents came and how they developed. But every story my father gave, the lesson in it was to do better, to have a vision, to look forward. It wasn't all about looking back, was just a story about how they started and how the grandparents came and why they came. But understanding what they went through, we knew we had to do better. And his mantra, his legacy was always about education. As I said, we grew up in the Eric Williams days where your future is in your book bag. That's it. So that was for me the awareness of who I am, being a Black family that have to really, and we never used the word struggle. It was always work hard. So instead of saying struggle to do anything, we had to work hard. You work hard at your studies. You work hard when you get into to prepare at home. You work hard in the house. So it was all about work ethic. So we learned work ethic and we learned discipline. And I saw that as an important legacy to move forward in terms of the journey towards emancipation. And I saw how successful, that method worked for me. But Darian, it went, so in terms of education side, we really worked hard, and fortunately for us in our family, we were able to, if you may say so, get better education based on the schools we went to. And I recall when, in my time, when I passed that there was a common entrance to go to St. Joseph Convent, and my dad said, listen, this school here, you will see those who have a lot. You don't have much, but what you have is your brain. So what you need to do is continue being disciplined, learn, enjoy all the benefits they give you, because your number one goal is to make sure you pass the exam so you can start to work, earn the income, and move forward. And with that work ethic, getting that early work ethic, went to school with that, learned, and moved from then towards to work in the workplace. But what was interesting is that when I graduated from school was just the year prior to the 1970 revolution. So that last year is when all the activities started, the marching, all the talks, on that. And I was able, because I also had friends at that time at the University of the West Indies. So, all the university students, they were the ones who really began all the talks and et cetera, et cetera. So I was able to learn so much about the Black history and what was happening. Because even at school, although I experienced, all the different challenges there, I didn't see it as a challenge, because I had a lot of self-confidence. Like you, I was proud of who I am. I grew up like that. So I never had any hang up about color of skin or hair or anything like that, which I must say was a very important lesson. So I didn't go to school with hang-ups. I went to school knowing that I am just as bright as, or even brighter. Right? And because of that, I can pave my own way. And I'm saying me, but it went with all my siblings and, those around also. So that helped. So that Black Power movement at that time, I was able to identify with the marchers and march myself. We actually did the marching. And it brought on that awareness again. Hey, this is what's happening outside here. And what was really real, and you spoke about opportunities. I recognized that although I graduated and had all the subjects, etc., I noticed, or very well aware, that many who graduated with me then went to the banks, went to the airline, all the private companies, etc. And having gone for several interviews for those who did call, I wasn't selected, and I didn't have to ask why. Because of the whole movement, I knew why. So of course I went in the service, but the awareness. But what that awareness did to me and many others in my situation then is made us work harder, made us be aware of what's going on and support the march and support the movement. And I have seen how that has made a difference in my journey, because my mindset was different. All right. So what you spoke about, you see that awareness, knowing that history, having been involved, and having parents who would share stories. And in sharing the stories, have you with that vision of yourself, a positive vision. Knowing that, hey, don't worry about lack of money, having to take transport, your dwellings is not the best, but be thankful for life. Be thankful for, yes, we have still come a long way. It may not have seemed like that to many people, but to my parents, us, we came a long way. And that vision, and I would recommend that I use that a lot, even now, and I used it with bringing up my children. You should always look forward and know what you want and go for it. You see the economic aspect. We were taught when we started to work, always put aside. You must, and in those days, you must join a credit union. That wasn't a choice we had. As we started to work, we were told how much money, we were told what to join a credit union, how much money to put in the credit union, join a life insurance, etc. And all that is preparing your estate, you know, and helping you for your future. So that journey, that emancipation journey for me, I would say was a very positive one. The positives overshadow the negatives because I keep being driven by that vision to do better and to leave a legacy for the next generation. So I continued along that line, being aware of all the different things that happened during the period, including the coup. But for me, those was life. That's what was happening. It's nothing like the struggles our forefathers went through at all. That was like nothing. That was like nothing.
You know, on that point, and I was just saying, people say that, but I don't think it's different.
Yeah.
It's just different in form. It's just different in form. And I think for all groups, because if we go back to again, we go to our history, and I usually put things in historical context. Trinidad was never a developed plantation place. The only place really had a lot of sugar is that Caroni Plain. So everywhere else was wild. Forests, you know, natural forests. And when cedulars of population came, whether it was French, Spanish, whoever, and British come to fight to take the place, they had to literally clear the land, chop down trees and things like that. The reasons that a lot of the islanders came to Trinidad in the 50s and so on is because they too were fleeing. There were so few options for them there if they were coming from state societies that they had to come to Trinidad to just get a chance, because you could get some land and settle somewhere. You could do something. Trinidad was developing as a commercial place. You could and when we go into the history of Laventille, if you go back 3 generations, there are no Trinidadians there. They came from the rest of the Caribbean. Yeah. And when I think of how people had to work, and I go across all the races, all the groups, for anybody to do anything and make anything of themselves, they had to work real hard, because you were literally going into virgin territory. So whether our hard work was clearing forests to create a settlement, clearing forests to plant a cocoa plantation, whether it was bedding down and digging, or whether you had to study by candlelight to get an exhibition to get into secondary school, or whether you had to have the competition of, yes, you have free secondary education, but you've got to be the best and work hard at that education. I think the sacrifice and the effort of all the generations from the emancipated slaves to today, because when we look at how we work to make sure that our homes are maintained, our children have the opportunities that they have, that whether it's an opportunity now to travel and see the world, to be educated abroad, to set up a business, to get a house. I wonder sometimes if we've not traded physical labor for mental labor and stress.
You may have a point, but I still, how I see it, and definitely not discounting our hard work or struggles. As I said, I didn't grow up with the word struggles, but I'm not discounting that at all. But if you look, anytime I personally reflect in the early days, in the slave days, I am thinking of really, you know, my forefathers being beaten, being killed, being hanged with a noose around their necks.
And they're getting it differently these days.
Well, yes, I mean, some modern ones will agree. But for me, all the graphics from those times, that
Jennifer,
it just wrenched my soul.
Jennifer, we are administering the poison to ourselves now.
No,
so if we
no, what I'm saying, and when I am saying, and we're talking about, we're talking about working hard.
Yes.
And I am saying, when I compare what they did to where I am, and let me talk about me, to where I am today, when I see I'm working hard, I do not compare the same shot. I feel I'm in a better place. And working hard for me, yes, I have to work hard, but it is, I see it not as bad. I see I've come a longer way in terms of the struggle, if you want to say the struggle. So that's how I looked at it.
I see that, and I take the picture of you had brutality of oppressor to the
A slave master.
keep
Yeah.
you disciplined and to instill fear into your life so you'll stay on the plantation and you'll work. So at the end of the day, remember you're an asset. And a lot of the brutality, you would make examples of someone to keep everybody in line.
Yeah.
Right? But what my points today, and I always look at things and I come back to our essentials toolkit, because if I look at, you'll get you beaten, and I'm not minimizing it, and I know we might have all kind of comments, Terry-Ann, what is wrong with you? I am like this. You would have had an owner of an asset wanting to push that asset to the limit. And when that asset came home, that asset got cared to, because the woman would know the bush medicine to put on the poultices to put on the back. They would get the richest broths and soup to nourish them back to health, because they have to go back on that field. All right. And one of the things that we see today that is alien to our ancestors, how we eat, the things we put into our system that slowly poison us, the kind of environmental damage we do it ourselves. Yes, we're not being brutalized. Yes, we're not being whipped and those traumatic and heart-wrenching kind of things. But sometimes I look up at us and I look at how we handle ourselves and how we are cavalier sometimes about the things that people have worked so hard for. All right. And we take it for granted. Opportunities for education. When you look at how some people just, they're just not valuing it. All right. And then the lives they live, you see people abusing themselves. As I say, you go through the generations. My personal journey with my family, my personal journey professionally has been very rewarding. I am a tremendous success. When my great-great-grandfather looks down, I know, and mother, they are beaming with pride there with the ancestors and say, yes, that's my blood, that's my vein. But when I look at all of us, sometimes I say we may be sort of resting on our laurels and taking stuff for granted. And that is why sometimes I think it is very important to go back and show the steps, understand whose shoulders you're standing on. And when you approach things that you have, that you take for granted, education, efforts of how you feed yourself, how you take care of your children, how you maintain your families, generally, we have to be a bit mindful of how we carry our emancipation legacy forward. It's a great way forward, but there are intangibles that if you equate yesteryear to today, no one can take up a whip and whip a man in public because he didn't say good morning, sir. You can't do that today. But there are different types of lynchings. There are different types of abuses that are still going on. That, yes, it is not physically brutal, but it's doing stuff to the mind. And
that's why, Terry-Ann, and I am agreeing with you in that last part, especially with the new movement of the Black Lives Matter, brought home a lot to the struggles that is still happening, and the oppression
by themselves.
No, I'm talking about on a general, because it's affecting. It is not. Yes, it is more prominent there in the US, but we have still an aspect of that biases in Trinidad. So we are looking at and moving forward and where we are now, because as you said, it's a journey, the emancipation. The whole thing is a journey,
Jennifer.
right? So the emancipation is a journey, and at this stage where we are in 2020, what I look at is that yes, there are the struggles, but I see us moving forward with the awareness of our history, looking at what has happened, and definitely I am seeing all positives and a great legacy being left for the next generation.
Okay, I have a mixed view. I'm glad you're seeing all.
It's
here and there for me. There's a lot.
I think the views are important, because this is my view, and I'm sure many people out there will say she can say what she wants. We struggling, you know. No, that's my view. I have a very positive view in moving forward.
Yeah, I tend to be more realistic. There are challenges. We've done a lot, but there are serious challenges. And Jennifer, we are out of time. This has been really, really interesting. We are celebrating emancipation. I
want to say happy emancipation. Continue on. I say we are moving forward in a positive way.
We have been moving forward since 1834.
Yes.
Okay.
So we continuing to push.
Bye.
So bye for now. Okay.
On Monday for Fix Up, 6 o'clock in the Gael. Everyone in the Caribbean, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.